Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 and chapter 2 of our course, where we will be going over scarcity and the world of trade-offs. Before we jump into the material, there are a few administrative items I wanted to go over. First, at this point, you should have your first 2 discussion posts completed. This was an introduction of yourself and setting a standard of success. If you don't have these first 2 initial discussion posts done, you should be expecting an email from me here soon. First, just to make sure you know where the material is for the textbook, the assignments, and the discussions. And second, to see if this is a course that you want to take moving forward. Keep in mind, we have a good wait list of students that would like to take this course this semester, and I want to make sure we're giving as many of those students an opportunity to do so. The second thing is, as soon as you finish reading, studying, and learning the material from chapter 2, you will have the opportunity to take your first unit exam. There is going to be a total of 8 unit exams throughout our semester, and these 8 unit exams account for 35% of your grade. Each unit exam will cover the material from the 2 previous chapters, with an exception to the 7th and 8th unit exam, which will have earlier material to help you prepare for the final. So, before you take your first unit exam, make sure you're taking the time to review your homework, review the material from the text, and review the lectures to help you prepare, because 35% is a good chunk of your grade. With all of that out of the way, let's talk scarcity and the world of trade-offs. Last week, we defined economics, and we used an even simpler definition than what the text provides. We said that economics was the study of scarcity. Scarcity is a word that we often have in our vocabulary that we read about all the time, but we don't often define what it is. It is a concept in economics where we have an insufficient amount of resources to satisfy the world's demand for a given good or service if the price of that good is 0. So let's bring that down and think of an example that would fit that need. We have the good of a pen, and the world demands this pen. At a given price of 0, we could not produce enough pens to satisfy that demand. And because of that, this pen has scarcity, and economics will help us in the decisions of who should get the pens and at what price these pens should be sold. What's a good that doesn't have scarcity? Well, let's think oxygen. Oxygen is a very, very important good. We need it to live. But currently, in the world that we live in, there is sufficient amount of that good to satisfy all of the world's demand for oxygen at a given price of 0. So, oxygen currently doesn't have scarcity, and economics will not help us in making decisions on how to allocate that good. Often when we think of scarcity, the first thing that comes to our mind is natural resources, like wood. Wood can be used for a whole variety of goods and services, like building furniture, building the frames of homes, and even toothpicks. So, because there's more demand for this wood than it would have at a given price of 0, it has scarcity, and economics helps us in making that decisions. But it's not limited just to natural resources. It can apply to land, it can apply to labor, it can apply to capital, which are final manufactured goods. It can apply to our time and how we use that. It can apply to human capital or even our entrepreneurship. Scarcity applies to any good or service that when we have a demand for it, all of that combined demand has a price higher than zero. So, how do we make those decisions and how do we allocate that good? The first tool that the text is going to go over to answer that question is this idea of opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is going to be one of those terms and concepts that if you have it in your back pocket, I promise it's going to help you in a few board meetings and a few things at work, no matter what field you go into. Opportunity cost is the concept of the next best alternative that must be sacrificed to obtain something you want. So let's pretend for a moment we are in a board meeting. And in the board meeting, they say we've just acquired this amount of money and there are X amount of things that we could spend it on. Well, as human beings, we logically start making a list, and some things start floating to the top of this will be the most profitable venture for us to pursue, and this will fit well within our framework of our business. But then we have all of these different alternatives to look over. And the whole concept of opportunity cost is for us to take a moment and to say, you know what, maybe this is the first logical thing that we could use our goods and resources on. But what we're foregoing or giving up is the alternative, our next best alternative to do this. And so it's always really, really important whenever we're making decisions as individuals, whether we're making decisions as a firm, or whether we're making macro decisions as a whole economy, to consider that next best alternative, what we're foregoing, what we're giving up in order to pursue what we think is most desirable. Having these discussions about the cost and the opportunity cost of what we're foregoing will always help us make the best decision. Opportunity cost is visualized within an economy by using the production's possibility curve. Sometimes you might be hearing production's possibility curve, and it is also referred to as a production's possibility frontier. But the whole idea of PPC is we have good A here on our y-axis, we have good B here on our x-axis, and we have this curve. And you'll notice this curve is bowed. The reason this curve is bowed is another law within economics called the law of increasing additional costs, meaning the more and more we make of good B, more than likely we'll be foregoing the opportunity to make more and more of good A. So our curve, therefore, is bowed when we go out. If we decide to make all of good A here, what we're foregoing is the opportunity to make any of good B. And as human beings and as an economy, generally, we like this idea of variety. So a point of efficiency within our PPC here, it'll be any point that lies along this curve. If a point lies below this curve, our economy is operating at inefficient levels. If we have a point outside of that curve, we are reaching a point that our current economy cannot produce. However, over time, we might adopt some new technologies, or we might trade with partners to make our curve shift outward. Similarly, if we have some sort of natural disaster or something happens within our economy to make us less efficient, our curve might shift to the left and go down. The idea of the production's possibility curve, though, is we are operating at some point along that level where we are meeting the demands of good A and good B within our economy. This could really be anything. I mean, this could be good A could be hot dogs, and good B could be technology. So when you're working through the homework, keep in mind those points of efficiency, inefficiency, and what's possible within our curve. Those are going to be the basic concepts of Chapter 2. Look them over, study them, and as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer those questions or work through a problem or two from your homework. I hope that gets you started off right, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll talk soon. Thanks.